Good morning, everybody. It is 8:10 a.m. It is March 24th. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Welcome to my channel. Now, this market, I talked about this 5650 level on Friday, and that held, and the market ripped off there. Well, I wouldn't say ripped. Towards the end, moved up from that level, and then that was the end of quad witching. So now we're in a new quarter, or not quarter. Uh, Now we're in after quad. I don't know why I can't think straight. After quad witching, usually there's some kind of market change. Now we are breaking out of this balance pre-market. We're gapping up pretty significantly. So this was expected, I believe. I mean, at least I expected this eventually to happen. We were kind of bottoming out, and we made a balance area, broke out, made a new balance area, and held the lows. And now we're moving up. This really isn't a surprise. This was we were very, I don't like to use those terms, but we were pretty much pretty oversold. Sentiment was pretty bearish, and eventually you get a rally. Do I think this is sustainable? Probably not, but we have to see. All right. Now, without further ado, welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use volume profile, market profile to find structure in the market, along supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, and the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. So it helps me find structure in the markets. All right, that's my way to structure data and for me to just look at it and make a plan, right? And so hopefully every day you guys join me in the mornings where I give you the news, story to markets. I give you the leaders and the laggards, economic calendar, and later on we do the long and short trade scenarios using the Nasdaq and the ES futures. All right, so hopefully you guys can join me every day, as well as smash the like button. All right, you could wait to the end if you want. All right, so now moving on. Let's get right into the futures watch list here. Let's see what's moving. Markets today. We have Ethereum up 6.23%. Bitcoin's up 4.45%. Nasdaq's up 1.45%. 10-year yield, interesting, is up 1.41%. Russell's up 1.31. ES up 1.15. Dow's up 0.91, crude's up 0.59, silver's up 0.56, gold's up 0.32, the dollar's flat, 30-year bonds are being sold, and the VIX is down 1.66%. We are at an 18.96 VIX. All right, moving on to the Mag 7 Plus. What do we have here? Coinbase, Bitcoin proxy, moving up 4.34%. Tesla, up almost 4%. That's been hit pretty hard and understandably making a good rebound. Okay. You got AMD up 2.64%. Meta's up 2.61%. Amazon up 1.93%. Nvidia's up 1.85%. So all these are moving pretty nicely. Boeing up 1.82. Google's up 1.53. JP Morgan up 1.35. GE up 1.29. Microsoft up 1.08. And so on and so forth. The laggards, Eli Lilly, which is still up. All right, moving on to sectors. Sectors, who's leading the pack? Now, these are the most beaten down since the move from February 21st. Semis is up 1.68, followed by technology up 1.58, discretionary up 1.56, financials up 1.13, communications up 1.06. So all the big boys up 1%. And there is no laggard. There is no weakness, but looks like the defensive stocks are the weakest. They're not red, they're just not strong, which is understandable. Okay. Moving on, let's go to economic calendar. Okay. And let's see this week. Now today we have two sets of data coming out 9:45 a.m. You got S&P Global Services, Manufacturing, Composite at 9:45. Okay, and then we got Fed Bostic talking and Fed Bar. Now tomorrow, what do we have? New home sales, Fed Williams speaking, Fed Kugler speaking. Wednesday we have durable goods, Fed Kashgari speaking. So a lot of Fed speak this week. All right. What else? Thursday, GDP, initial jobless claims, and Fed Barkin after the market close. And Friday, this is the big data for the week: core PCE and Michigan consumer sentiment. And Fed Bar, Fed Bostic. All right, that's this week. Nothing huge except PCE. All right, the juice didn't really have much for us. Let's look at morning news. So, first quarter U.S. earnings outlook looks less rosy with tariff worries in focus. Analysts are turning more cautious on U.S. corporate earnings for the first quarter of this year, while the Trump administration policy is threatening to trigger a global trade war that would undermine economic growth. U.S. retailers haggle with suppliers after Trump tariffs. U.S. retailers Walmart and Target are bickering behind the scenes with their suppliers over proposed price hikes on everything from cake pans, tote bags, and toys to other merchandise. Exclusive Airbus Boeing eye fast output as plastics loom for future jets. Let's see. Tesla halts driving assistance software trial in China pending approval. Let's see here. Anything else here? Just trying to see any other. Let's see. OpenAI and Meta have held separate discussions with India's Reliance Industries over potential partnerships to expand their artificial intelligence offerings in the country. Okay. Tesla, the company said it would release a smart driving assistance feature in China after completing regulatory approval, following complaints that a limited time free trial of its self-driving service had been temporarily paused. All right. Says Trump's regulatory freeze throws U.S. fishing industry into chaos. President Donald Trump's regulatory freeze has injected chaos and uncertainty into a number of lucrative American fisheries, raised the risk of a delayed start to the fishing season for some East Coast cod and haddock fleets, and leading to overfishing of Atlantic bluefin tuna, according to the Reuters interviews with industry groups and federal government employees. All right, real quick here, FedEx, Dow Capital Markets cuts target price 240 from 285. They had pretty bad outlook today. Lennar Barclays cuts target price to 110 from 121. And Redfin, JP Morgan raises target price to 12.5 from 7. Interesting. After Rocket Companies announced agreement to acquire the company. All right. There's the news, right? Let's see if there's anything else here. Something about diluted tariffs. Let's see here. So, however, it says U.S. reciprocal duties to be limited. However, reports from Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal emerged over the weekend indicating that U.S. President Donald Trump will likely not impose sectoral tariffs next week, and that his plans for reciprocal tariffs will be limited to 15 countries. Okay. Trump has repeatedly touted April 2nd as Liberation Day for the U.S., and while tariffs against major U.S. trading partners are still expected to weigh in the economy, their lessened scope offered investors some hope that the impact will be minimal. All right. All right. Let's move on to the daily charts. Let's go over some dailies. All right. And let's look at this together. We never reached this trend line. Okay. So if we have to look at the market, right? We came down and we were balancing. We were trying to make lower, go lower, and we couldn't. And then we pushed up, made a new balance area. On Friday, look at that. You made new lows out of this balance area. Okay? You made new lows. But then you got bought up into the middle of balance. Right? And this is last week's highs. Look at that. You could not break out of the previous week's range. Every time you tried, you got resistance, right? So, where does that put us now? 570. Let's call it 60. We are right here, right above the previous week's highs. Okay. Now, These highs, this high will become last week's highs. So we're still below last week's highs, but we're threatening to go and push up, right? You got the 200-day moving average at about, what is that, about 573.50. 573.50. Okay. Keep an eye on that level. All right. I'd say the next level too is 582. You got a trend line here coming in at about 578. So probably with the extension would probably be somewhere around the 576 area. We just have to see. Let's look at futures, get a clear picture, just what we'll be doing in futures here. So that doesn't look right. Oh, my apologies. My apologies. This is the last contract, so I'm going to move that contract to M25. Let's do that. And now we get into the new contract. Okay. That looks better. I'm just going to edit this one as well. Give me one sec. All right. So here's our current contract now because we rolled forward. All right. So you can see breaking out here, breaking over these highs. All right. Where can we go? This is last week's highs right there, 58.12. I'm sorry, that was not last week's highs. Last week's highs was right here. Sorry about that. 57.70. All right, so we're over last week's highs. Going to the 20-day simple moving average. Okay. Now, moving on to the Qs. All right, so here's your Qs. Now the Qs kind of had this big balance area. It really didn't have that like push up, and it did, but really overall was this big balance area. So what did we do? We were actually relatively stronger than the SPY on Friday. Came down, broke these lows, right? Couldn't break this low, and then got bought up, right? And we know we're gapping up, so we're at 487.70. What did I say? 487. Wow, look at that. You're all the way up here in the Qs. Why is that? Because the weakest sectors are going to get the biggest pop off when you start to move up. That is why. So 487.70, we're all the way up here. It's pretty significant. Let's look at futures to get a visual of that. So there we go. Pushed off. And look at this. Basically an exhaustion gap here. So you're gapping up well above these highs. All right, so anybody who was short over the weekend is now very underwater. All right, that is your QQQ and your SPY and your yes. Okay, real quick, let's look at the Mag 7 ETF. It's going to look very similar, a little different. Big balance area, big balance area, still under the 200-day. So that's your Mag 7 ETF. All right, moving on to the bond market. Now the bond market's getting a little bit, catching a little bit today. Interesting, right? Interesting. So let's look at that triple-headed monster here. So we have a downtrend here, and it's breaking the downtrend. Now, really, you got to break this swing high here, 4.358. This is interesting. So you've gotten buyers come off this 200-day moving average. Now, buyers, which would mean sellers in the bond market, because this is the inverse of the actual bond market. Okay, let's look at the dollar. The dollar's pretty much flat. All right, so that dollar's really been in this area here because this little consolidation and this consolidation. All right, so is it going to break out of here? I don't know. You can see this big move up and this like curved, it's kind of got like a nice curve to it. So we'll have to see. Let's look at the VIX. Now the VIX was all the way up here at 30s. It's all the way down here now. 18.94. 18.94. Okay. So fears was up here, all the way down here now. Still a nice VIX. Okay. For ranges. All right. I think that's it. I think we can go down to the market profile, volume profile. Let's do that, and we'll analyze what's going on here. And this is your market profile and your volume profile. All right, so real quick, let's just analyze what happened on Friday. Okay, opened up here, right? And eventually, what did you do? You tested this big support level. I mean, look at this, 56.51 here, 56.50, another try here, another try here, and then again. Every time that was bought, right? Every time. So, when we did that, right, the market tried one more time to go lower, and then boom, right? And then into the close, right? And what did we do? Basically, we couldn't break these lows, and these shorts were forced to cover. Okay. So, this was our balance area, right? Couldn't go lower, so you're going to go higher. Now, this is all a matter of the first move is a test. Breaking out of the balance is a test, right? This is just a test, not a move yet. So we have to see if you get continuation higher. Then you're officially breaking out. Now, we are in ultimate balance. What is that level? 5670. 5670. Okay, this level is ultimate balance. Big moves happen from ultimate balance. The most agreed upon price in the last month in the week has been 5670. Okay? So everybody is here. The most people agree that this is the fairest price. And now we're up here. Okay, so we are gapping up from Sunday. See, this got a gap right here. Boop. That's your gap. So 57.22 is gap fill right there. Okay. You are 100% net long. Opened up, no short. And you're at the top of the range. Most traded price right here, the overnight. So you could be looking at a little bit of a correction. Now, this is last week's highs right here. 57.70. Okay. So, right, I think we're going to get continuation today. I think the probabilities on the side of finally getting some continuation. Okay. So, let's look at this together. You have a couple demand zones here. Now, one other note right here. Here's your month to date VWAP, 57.56. We are now over that. What does that mean? That means everybody who was short from in the beginning of March is underwater. Now, this is once this turns green, that means buyers are back in control of this month. And that's pretty significant because March was pretty weak. Okay, so that's a big feather in the cap for the bulls. Okay, right there. So we got demand there, and then we have the overnight lows, 57.39, and that's our gap. Right. We do have a previous week's highs right up here. Okay, and we have a supply zone here. All right, so let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. All right. So as far as levels, we know we have this breakout level. Let's call it 5770. Literally lines up right here with this highs and demand. Okay. So we're going to get right into scenarios of what could happen today. We're going to start with the bull case. Okay. So let's look at it. Now remember, like I said, we're 100% net long in the overnight. There has been no shorts at all. Most traded prices right here. So what would I think could happen? All right. I think very realistically that we could push up. Now you got a poor high here. See this incomplete profile? We're going to push up. I have no doubt in my mind. Either we do it before the market opens or we do it after the market opens. But we're going to push up, get some excess out of this profile. We go right into a supply zone. Either we tap a previous week's highs right up here, right? Or we go into the supply, and I believe we could possibly correct. If we correct back to the breakout level, 5770 and last week's highs, there's demand here. There's a week-to-date VWAP, which just started. You got month-to-date VWAP here. So I think this is definitely a buy point, and you could hold, 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 and you could really start to make a move. Do you make a move up to 58.80? I don't know, right? But that, I believe, could be the move. Okay, now you also have this area here. You can pull down here too as well. Take off. And then, I'd be a little cautious if we come started down and tried to fill this gap, because now you're coming back into range. So I wouldn't be as ecstatic of that if you lose overnight lows. I would be like, oh boy, not that we're going down forever, but going back to the mean. All right. Now, if you do that, and you start to find acceptance, we're going to go down and break these lows. We're going to break eventually these lows, 56.50s, and then we can come down to all the way to down here. Okay. So I'm not gonna. That's some bear. I give you some bear in that. I don't want to do that right there. Right. So that's our bull. Let's go to our bear. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Hold on. Let's do this. All right. We're gonna do the bear scenario now. And my voice changed all of a sudden. Interesting. All right. So price is right here, 57.87. Right. So if you're bear and you want to scalp something, we'll just inverse this, right? I think we're going to pull into this supply, lower high, lower high. You go through this most traded price of the overnight, you're going to correct into this area. Now, before I told you that could be a buy point, but this is a bear scenario, right? If we crush through these demands, hold, 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 and you have to see what we do with the gap fill, 57.38. This is very important, okay? Very important. If we start to move and fill the gap, now we're back in range, and I believe we do test 56.50, and then we can pull lower. All right. Very important to look at this gap fill. Any kind of support in this gap would be probably bullish, but you have to understand you're coming back into range. So if you do, longs from here are going to probably start to liquidate the position. So just really have to pay attention to that. All right. Now let's look at the NASDAQ. We'll check out some levels here for the NASDAQ. All right, so the NASDAQ has a nice gap as well. Opened up 100% net long. Your gap fill is 199.73 right there. Okay. Now look, they had a nice level too. 196. 196. You can see right here was support. Okay. Tried to come down there, hit demand, ripped up. Here's your ultimate balance level. Your ultimate balance level is roughly, let's call it 198.85. Okay, 198.85. That's ultimate balance. Okay, just to let you guys understand, again, that's the most traded price of the month and the week are together. That means that Everybody agreed in that price. Long and shorts agreed in that price. The farther you move away from that, the more pain you cause from one or the other. Okay. Now, when I did my analysis over the weekend, okay, and you can see that in my Discord here. Hold on. Into the weekend outlook here. Okay. You could see here, I do the indexes, the sectors. How many ultimate balances do you see? Ultimate balance, ultimate balance, ultimate balance, ultimate balance, right? All these were queued up for big moves. All of them. And I was like, man, we're going to get a big move. One way or the other, we're going to get a big move. My guess was to the upside. Okay. So that's what's happening right now. Now, who knows if we get follow through? I don't know. Right. I do have positions on. Um, I have positions in Microsoft, Nvidia, um, this Bitcoin mining company, ticker IREN. What else do I have? And I have crude. I have a bull call spread on crude. So I have some positions, and I had more that I took off. I took off one off on Netflix when we took a deep dive last week. I had one in Oracle, and I just was like, you know what? I'm not gonna hope here. Um, but I just told you the current positions I have. Okay. So with that being said, let's look at Nasdaq again. So here's your gap fill 199.73. Here's your overnight lows. We are 100% net long. Now notice something, the difference right in the profile. Notice how ES, most traded prices up here. Well, the Nasdaq's here, right? Right here with this demand zone. Okay. It's already above last week's highs. Nasdaq. Like I said, this is expected. They were the laggard. Okay. This is expected. Now, big important level here is your half your midpoint of this move. 50% retracement, 20160. Lines right up with last week's highs. Now we're way over the month of day VWAP in the Nasdaq. Now that means buyers are in control of March. Pretty crazy, right? Pretty crazy. We do have a supply zone. Lines up with a previous week high right above us. Remember, 100% net long. 100% net long. So that means everybody from down here is getting paid. Everybody who bought the overnight is getting paid. So, like I said, there could be some corrective activity from this, right? So, this is your level that we broke kind of here. And I'm going to call it like a 20140 level here. That's kind of like your breakout. It kind of lines up here, right? All right. Let's look at the scenarios for this. Okay, let's just get right into it. All right. Let's go with the bull case. All right, so price is here. You got a supply zone here. Okay. Kind of really overextend it. Okay. So a couple things here. Like I said, we can go into the supply. I mean, I don't go long on supply. So we can come in here and I think we could possibly correct down to the week to day VWAP to last week's highs and to this breakout level. Okay. Even the most traded price of the overnight. Anywhere in this area, you could find some buyers. Higher low, higher low. And I think we could start to make our way back up higher. Okay. Even overnight lows, even if you tried to test those, possibly again, right? Now this is a little different, right? Overnight lows are not too far off from the breakout level. See, in ES, it was way deeper down, way deeper down. Okay, so as long as we kind of hold around here, I feel like we can make a move higher. All right. Now we go to the bear side. I don't think I can undo that. Okay. So let's go to the bear side. Now remember, the one feather in the cap is the 100% net long, and you have buyers from these lows. They're all paid, right? So if anybody's like this, you know what? I'm going to take some profit. Like I said, we can come in here, supply, come through the open, and correct right down into this area, right? That could be a short. Remember, I said we could bounce from here. But what if we take out this demand zone and go back under the month to day VWAP, hit overnight lows, and we start to fill the gap, 19973? Well, if we fill that gap, we're most likely going to hit the mean, the most traded price. Okay. Now, would it be very common to now jump back up? No. This would be considered a look above and fail. And now all longs will liquidate and we'll go back down to last week's lows, 196, and see if we can break it. That's how balance rules work. Okay. That's why I'm saying you have to see if this test out of the balance is going to hold and you get the move. If the test is just a test and you go back into range, usually you go back to the other side of balance. Okay. All right. That's it, folks. That's my analysis. Please show some love and smash that like button if you enjoyed that analysis. Okay. Please do that. That would mean a lot to me. All right. And then hopefully you guys can join me every day, every morning, and get the analysis, right? Get the story, the leaders and the laggards, the market news, the economic calendar. You just got my long and short trade scenarios. So we have to see. This market's probably due for some type of rally. How long does it last? Who knows? But we do have a plan. We do have a plan. All right. So everybody have a great day. No trades to trade. Stay patient. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.